X-Pac 12360, featuring weekly news, insider commentary, and interviews with superstars, past and present from the world of pro wrestling.
A new day is dawning for DX.
And now, your host, Sean X-Pac Waltman.
Welcome to X-Pac 12360. It's going to be back here again this week, last week. Let me just first say that a little bit later on, we're going to be joined by Teddy Hart. And I've known Teddy since he was a little guy. Anyways, yeah, it's going to be an interesting conversation. I haven't had an in-depth conversation with Teddy in a long time. And probably last time I did, I wasn't in nearly as good a state of mind as I am today. So
back in Mexico in AAA.
Well, yeah, and even a few years back, I saw him in not this year's New Orleans WrestleMania, but a
30.
yeah, and I was doing all right then too, but not I've come a long way since then. Anyways, it's not about. I was going to say it's not about me, but it's my show.
Your name's on the marquee.
Yeah, and also, trying to. I feel good. I feel good this week. It's been a tough, last month or so for everyone that loves wrestling. That the losses we've had, and so it's kind of dragged the show down. Not dragged it. I didn't mean to
drag the energy, maybe.
Yeah,
the energy
been
of the
draining.
show.
Yeah, it's
the
been
show
draining.
is still good.
Yeah. Yes. But you want to. I want the show to be okay. You watch or listen to the show and you feel good afterwards, not sad.
But a lot of people were tweeting you and saying oh, thank you for your honesty and opening up about the sad stuff.
Yeah,
so this wasn't too
and that's
bad.
fine. But somebody did mention I was in a shitty mood the other night and during SummerSlam, and I tweeted something about how terrible it is, the worst for a wrestler to wrestle in front of a dead crowd. Wasn't making a comment about why the crowd was dead, anything like that, and everyone was just making my tweet about whatever they wanted to, and so I didn't take it too good, and I got a little bit, you
got caught up in your mentions, as some would say.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, but somebody came at me and they're like, even your show, you've been kind of negative a little bit lately. And my initial thought was mute this asshole and F that guy.
Yeah.
I didn't do that.
Well.
And about, I don't know, a half an hour later, I was like, maybe the guy has a point. He said he's a huge fan and I got a little defensive there. So, I'm going to try to be mindful of my positivity.
No, absolutely. But I also think that a week-to-week show about just the state of wrestling, it's okay that if the state of wrestling is what it was the past two episodes, it's not completely unacceptable to just have segments where it's listen, we have to talk about what's happening. This is what happened.
And here's the thing, everyone. I'm a human being just like you, and sometimes, I try not to drag things into the studio with me, but it happens here and there, and so I think I usually do a fairly decent job of it. So what's going on?
Well, definitely a lot happened. There was a lot to watch in the wrestling world this last Saturday and Sunday, obviously with the NXT TakeOver and with SummerSlam. So I guess we'll get started off with NXT TakeOver. What were some of the matches that you guys thought that were just out of this world, highlights of the show, etc.?
Top to bottom.
Yeah. But here's the thing with NXT. I came in late on the NXT show, so I got the last couple of minutes of the tag match, and then picked up from there. And so I was talking to Austin last night. I'm not going to go into depth on my conversation with Steve, but we were talking about that, and he was just raving him. Like, he was putting that match over. That was his favorite match.
That I also tuned in because it's 4 p.m. here. It was when NXT TakeOver starts, which I think is a little early for NXT TakeOver.
Yeah.
But I probably only saw the last 5 or 10 minutes of that match. It was an 18-minute match, and that was straight fire from what I saw.
I went back and watched it last night, like, carefully. Wow. Wow. I mean, because I was talking about, why do why do the ladies always have to be put in, like, the toughest spot of the night, And, like, what spot isn't tough after the first match is like that. Like, to me, as great as the whole show was, I hate to say it, it was a little bit downhill, like, match-wise. Like, because that was the best match of the night. I
agree. Although I think with suspending disbelief, I feel this was the more or less predictable match. But although NXT doesn't really care about that much, but like of all the matches, this was the most predictable. Where it's like, well, the only thing that would make you think Mustache Mountain would win is that they won before, and it's like maybe they'll trade.
Yeah, and you're not because you can't go with that. Like,
I know.
That,
yeah,
because look, I was thinking I'm jumping ahead of myself here, but to the Gargano Champa finish.
Yeah.
Like I didn't see that. I was thinking it was going to be the other way around.
That's fair.
Me personally.
I think they were literally all over the place with Gargano Champa, but I also think booking wise they only had 2 weeks to scramble for what this match. They had no intention of putting this match fourth in a string of 4 matches.
What did you think of Dream's tights?
They're fine,
Call me
whatever.
up, Vince.
It's just an attention thing, and people trying to get, it's just trying to get people to say something, and it worked.
Yeah,
it worked. It's fine. It's those types of things. They don't really like. Everyone else kind of notices it, and it's like it's whatever. But I could care less about that kind of thing.
I'm hearing conflicting sides. I'm hearing folks saying that there'd be no way he'd be allowed on television with those on his tights without it being approved properly. And then Triple H the next day claiming he had no idea until he saw it on the screen.
Well, it makes me think of when Dolph Ziggler put Lana on his tights.
Yeah.
And he had the same situation. They didn't know that Lana was on his crotch until he went out on the pay-per-view, and then he wasn't allowed to wear those tights again.
I wouldn't be shocked if it was approved somewhere between the wrestler and Triple H to insulate that's how you do it. Because it probably, the further up the chain it would go, the more likely you are to get a no. So you go straight to and say yes, and then don't do anything else.
You don't need to tell Vince to call you up on his tights. Like, you got it going on, Patrick. You're getting a call.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't need to put that out there like that.
Also,
I just think it's a little. I think he's a little.
Yeah. Also, of all the folks on the NXT card that night, I think Patrick's one of the few Vince might actually have known of because he was on Tough Enough, and Vince was probably more involved in Tough Enough than he was involved in NXT.
Yeah. Hey, so I want to go backwards here. Like, that tag match, it's too good, and there was too much good shit in that tag match to just gloss over.
Oh, yeah.
Like, some of the stuff, okay, when, and how about Trent Seven, right?
Oof.
Like, no one talks about him enough. Well, maybe I just don't hear it, because, I mean, that guy's phenomenal, and he looks like... just some dude that drinks a lot of beer and doesn't go to the gym very much.
He looks like someone you'd find in a pub that was like, rolls up their sleeves and is like, let's go.
He'll beat your ass, but so when they'd already done a tag where Trent got the hot tag at one point. He came in there and blew a hell of a hot tag, bam, bam, and then they stopped him. And then eventually they got to a point where both Mustache Mountain were in submission holds.
Yeah.
And Tyler Bate was in a triangle choke, but then he picked up Kyle?
Yeah.
And with one arm, and then just ran him right into... Roderick Strong.
Who's got him in the strong.
Yeah, it's just like there's nothing like spectacular like you would think of when you think of like somebody doing a crazy flip, triple Indy, whatever. But it was just the creativity and the timing and the people just ate it up. And like everything that followed after that for like a good like minute or two was just as good as anything I've seen in a long time. like the way like he dove out, and then, you know, whoever tried to throw him back in, but then he bounced off the ropes on the outside and clotheslined him.
Tyler Bate.
Yeah,
that was
come
great.
on. You know, that's what I'm talking about when I tell people to quit, like, falling back in all the routine shit that everyone has seen a million times. Like, use your brains like these guys, you know? And, like, and if you can't, like, I don't know, I don't want to say steal other people's shit, but, like, take it, make it your own somehow.
Well, if you take it, make it your own, it's not stealing. Yeah, like,
yeah.
An idea is different from a thing.
Yeah.
Like, if you have an idea and then you turn it into your thing,
and
it's
if
your
you
thing.
don't steal it, someone else is gonna anyways. So.
What do you think of War Raiders coming out and just kind of calling their shot after this match?
That was fine.
The
fine.
Brooklyn crowd was hot for them, as they would be.
Yeah. So yeah, okay, that was.
I like that feud too.
Great. And I like setting up your next tag team feud in the takeover, because I don't know how many, but I'm sure there are a lot of folks who don't necessarily watch NXT week to week, because it is the kind of product you could watch takeover to takeover and kind of generally know what's going on. That I like that. Nope, we know next time.
Hey, so EC3 and Velveteen Dream, they had to follow that tag match. Tough match to follow. They had a hell of a match. I think if there was a match in the show that like NXT fans would think was, because they're all great matches, I think, but that was the least of the great matches. Maybe.
Do you think that maybe we still aren't seeing all of EC3's full potential, or at least in this match?
I just don't think, like when we had Nick Hausman on last week, and I was talking with Nick about this, there's some people I think are more geared for the main roster, and I think EC3 is one of them. Because there's a certain flavor that in the ring too, like that. Yeah. That NXT has, and I just think that it's not necessarily EC3's cup of tea. I think he's really valuable on the main roster.
Oh, I think he's definitely.
I think they need to just get him up there.
Yeah,
and
I also think I don't quite agree with it, but I've heard it said that the first half of this match felt more like just a superstars match, like a very by the bones, two guys go at it until they go to the outside and it kind of blew up. I think that was intentional. I actually preferred it that way, but a lot of folks gave it that criticism and blame that criticism on EC3. Just because he's a body guy, like that's his style. That's the style he's more comfortable with, so they had to do it half his way, half Velveteen Dream's way.
Okay.
But and that still worked.
And you just followed a tag match like that, like, and if you think you're going to go out there and follow that by doing more than the same, like it's like, you know, I mean,
I love the finish, the Velveteen, the Dream Driver, and then the elbow. Was great.
Okay, I know what I was going to say about this, because like EC3 started bleeding, and I think, and no, I haven't heard anyone say this, but I think they might have called the match early.
That's a possibility.
Oh yes, because I've been there when they've done it. When we were at that match
NXT
at the
in LA with Lars.
Yeah.
Lars got busted open. I think he wrestled Gargano actually.
Oni
Larkin.
Yeah.
And Lars Sullivan. Yeah, that was the match.
And he started bleeding, and they would do that on pay-per-view too. So it was just because it was a weird, just like all of a sudden that, you know, the finish came, and it was like there would have been more to it if like it would have, the finish would have played out a little bit more like
organically. It did feel a little sudden. It still worked. Like they went to the finish, so the finish was still strong. But you're right. There probably was 3 more minutes there that they didn't get to. And we've seen the pictures after he got busted pretty hard. That was the 3rd blood spot of the weekend. But the first of the of the 3. Sorry.
Yeah. So all right, and
did you want to talk about Ricochet, Adam Cole, Kairi Sane, Shayna Baszler, Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano, and obviously Matt Riddle?
Yeah. So like this segment's going to go a little longer than 20 minutes, Marcus. So Marcus is just going. Poor Marcus.
Well, there was a lot of matches overall this weekend.
Yeah.
What did you think of the show, Mark?
I absolutely loved it. I thought every single match brought a different style to NXT and showed the variety of wrestling that they can do. And talking about Dream and EC3, I agree that it felt like a WWE match on an NXT show.
Right.
And kind of agree also that it was still very good, but everything else had such a high bar to hit that it made it that much more difficult to hit. But I thoroughly enjoyed every match on the TakeOver card.
Yeah. What do you think about my thoughts on EC3 just being more geared for the main roster as opposed to NXT?
I agree. I thought that we would see him on Raw this week. To be honest, I thought that he was just going to have a quick trip so that he could make the EC3 appearance, or maybe we start seeing some video packages soon. But I don't think he's going to be spending too much time in NXT.
Yeah. So, yeah, Ricochet and Adam Cole just crushed it. Wow.
Oh, so good.
Well, I look. I've seen Adam Cole around for quite a while here and there on shows. Ran into him, super nice guy. Like, had no idea he was that great. I just didn't. You know, like, I mean, I can't see everything out there, and like you see the guy, and what a really handsome guy, right? And then, but he's not a big guy, like in street clothes, like he just looks like a normal guy. And so, like, I mean, you know, I didn't.
He's the total package. He's got the look. He can cut a promo. He can wrestle. He's amazing.
It was then the psychology, like to me, like his psychology is, I think, his strong suit.
Yes.
You know, not that anything else isn't right up there too, but like to me, his brain. I like the way that.
And that makes him very strongly suited for the WWE as well.
And it was just, and Ricochet is just on a whole nother level. And there's a couple of little things I want to see Ricochet tighten up in between stuff. You know, keeping it looking more like I don't know. I do know, but I you know, I just once he tweaks these couple of little things, he's going to be like in league of his own, like total package, not just as a high flyer.
Oh yeah.
More like in between the moves thing.
Yes, and just keeping it like intense. Like sometimes it looks like too, like when he's getting ready to set up or something.
Yeah, like stunty, I guess.
Yeah,
would be
like he's like when he's ready to run into the ropes or like.
Yeah, I noticed he has a tell, at least, where right when he's about to do a high-impact run into something, he looks square at his feet to make sure that they're both planted firmly on the ground and runs straight into his opponent.
Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, if you have any more little tidbits like that from now on, I wish you would share them with us.
Hey, I'll do what I can.
All right.
What about Kairi Sane and Shayna Baszler?
Oh, wow. All right, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I saw that and I was like, okay, these guys, those two are next, and I'm like, wow, how do you follow that? But like, you knew they were gonna, because every time because they always get put in a spot where it's a tough match to follow, and like the last several times every time I've seen them, they've come through.
The women's division on NXT and the tag division on NXT are just bar none.
So, but my only thing is like, okay, just because they can follow a match like that, doesn't mean you gotta make them do it every single show.
Yeah.
You know, put them on after EC3 and Velveteen Dream this time, or I don't know, but
use them as a way to kind of jumpstart the crowd again, instead of kind of like, okay, this is the point of the show where we're supposed to be tired, but we're not.
Yeah. So like, and the only reason I'm saying that is like, give them a fresher crowd.
Yeah.
Reward them every once in a while with the fresher crowd, and not just like, oh, we know you can do it, so here.
Yeah. And
that's all.
I know it would be counterintuitive to everything they're saying about the women's revolution, but like if they opened the show, that would have been acceptable too.
Absolutely.
Because the crowd would have been straight fire for them the whole way through.
Yeah. So, but I'm a huge Shayna Baszler fan, and I like how she's adjusted, because when she first came in, real like, okay, no rope work or nothing, but now she's incorporated that a little. Because look, regardless of like how pure you are as a wrestler, you're in WWE, you're going to work WWE style.
Oh yeah. And yeah,
if you want to be there.
She's come along very nicely. I think.
Excellent.
I think how she's come, so we're a year past the Mae Young Classic, so how she's come from the Mae Young Classic to now, I think is kind of the blueprint people should be looking at Ronda.
Yes.
That like where Ronda is right now, a year from now, it's like the progression should be about the same.
Yeah. Okay, so there's one particular point in the match where Kairi Sane has Shayna in trouble, and she's up on the top rope, and she's about ready to drop that elbow on her back, and Shayna rolls to the floor, and the people start booing, right? And so Kairi just goes after and just turns and then dives on her on the floor, and I was just like, thank you, somebody made a dive without setting it up the same exact way everyone sets it up, where you know it's coming a million miles away. It was such a relief to see a dive incorporated like that,
because she treated
where it wasn't forced,
and she treats the top rope like a loaded gun. So if I load a gun and point it at you and you move, I'm still gonna cool. I'm gonna move my hand now.
So and then the finish, like everything was just fantastic about that.
I love the finish so much because everyone's like, "Oh, Piper Brett," and the way she got into it wasn't like Piper Brett where you pushed off the turnbuckle. It was so out of nowhere.
Yeah, I enjoyed this a lot, and it keeps Shayna Baszler equal to Kairi Sane, although they've this is the rubber match of 3, and she's the champion now. This was the only match I didn't predict correctly because I thought they were just going to bring Kairi up. They were going to bring Kairi up, keep Shayna Baszler down there.
Oh no!
Let her have a longer reign.
No, I didn't think that. I thought she was on her way up. Yeah.
And then obviously the main event, Tommaso Ciampa versus Johnny Gargano, which we know this has been going on for quite a while. And honestly, I don't feel like it's something that you can ever get sick and tired of, because all the dimensions that they played with this match, I feel like when you think you can't take it to this next level in the storyline with the psychology and everything, they kind of did continue that.
It was an incredible match. It was. I was expecting Gargano to win. I'm wondering, okay, I know this was put together last minute. It was under. It was
under a bit of a duress. Duress, the plan.
Yeah, but when's he gonna come through?
I guess I've heard a lot of people compare this to a Tommy Dreamer Raven situation where Johnny Gargano never wins. He should win.
At some point, the good guy has to come through.
And I think they needed this story beat for Johnny to go to his absolute lowest, to dip to Tommaso Ciampa's level and go 100%, I don't care what I do to myself, and sort of put his morals and his ideals on the shelf in order to win. And he needed this moment to sort of turn around and go, no, I've given up who I am. I've given up, to use an insider term, the white baby face, the
white meat
baby face, white meat baby face. I misspoke. That I am and have been, and a lot of people got behind in order to destroy this evil in my life. And I think now going through this moment and maybe getting a kick in the face in the near future from Aleister Black might be the thing that sets him back on the right path. And I think I think this beat was going to be that no matter what. And they're going to have one more where it's Johnny wrestling 100% good guy, following the rules, et cetera, et cetera.
And so because everyone, you guys probably know better than I, because you probably follow the product closer than I do. Is everyone still going to have an appetite for it?
I think so.
Possibly.
I think they're in the fight forever.
They're definitely.
Brett, Sean, Sammy, Kevin, they're in that, you guys could just beat the crap out of each other and we'll always want to see it.
There's a theory I want to float very quickly, which is, what if Tommaso Ciampa is essentially grooming Johnny Gargano to be the most ruthless version of himself so that he can then get DIY back together as a heel team?
Well, because that was one of the things, when he was like, oh, I'm sorry, and he was like, well, it's too late, dude.
Yeah, you know? But, the constant, if Tommaso Ciampa is the most evil of evil person, and what would the most evil thing be if he ultimately wanted to be tag team champions with Johnny Gargano, is that he would take every ounce of good out of Johnny Gargano so that they can be the absolute most evil team possible, and then maybe go up to the main roster that way. That would be a way to do it, and then you wait a while, and then you turn Johnny Gargano face again. Yeah, something like that.
All right, so I think we obviously a lot of people definitely liked NXT TakeOver, and I mean obviously you can't argue with that. But then moving on to SummerSlam, do you guys want to start at the pre-show, or do you guys just want to go into the main card?
What was in the pre-show? We can zip through it.
Okay, well we had Andrade Cien Almas and Zelina versus Rusev and Lana.
Yeah.
Rusev, who fought the champ the month
Yeah,
previous.
and they put over I saw that the Andrade and
They
Selena
needed
got
it.
the,
Yeah.
They needed
got
it.
the
I
win.
feel like their hype has gone down, you know?
Yeah.
And I think they can do a lot more with them. And then Cedric defeated Gulak. Did you guys see?
I didn't watch it. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like when you have a show that is, how long was the show? 6 hours.
It was 4 plus a 2-hour pre-show.
So that's more like an all-day music festival to me. And so to me, when you do that, when you put that in front of me, like I'm going to go a la carte and pick which stuff I want to consume. You know, because that's just the way it is.
It's a lot. Like,
yeah, and so I didn't see those, and you know, sorry.
Well, like overall, I think a lot of the common theme of what I saw for the pre-show was that a lot of people, nothing really major happened. Like, to be honest, we could have done without some of these matches, you know? And it's because I feel like you said, it kind of drags some of the other matches that should be a little bit more important.
Sure.
It drags them down. So that's one of the arguments that I was thinking about earlier was, I know that they want as many people as possible to be on the big shows and whatnot, but is that actually, you know, the right decision? Should we make it more special? Like, you're on this pay-per-view card, you worked hard to get here, so maybe don't have all of these matches and have I guess those storylines or the feuds that actually earned it to be on the card.
Yeah.
Like a less is more situation.
Yeah, exactly.
You're watering down the pay-per-view by
it's
adding 4 more matches to the pre-show instead of just not having those there.
Oh yeah, because the comparison I've made is that NXT is the equivalent to like a steakhouse, whereas the pay-per-view the following night is more or less the equivalent to a buffet. They're both great. They both feed you. You'll get exactly what you want out of both, but one is curated specifically for your taste, and the other is. One of these you'll love one of these things.
Well, you can tell by the crowd. It was the same building, entirely different crowd feeling and vibe. The B team was on the pre-show also.
Yeah, the B team,
and
the revival.
Their little B team, go 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 chant that they got going. They're really trying to replace the New Day. I think that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna break up New Day and split them up, and then B team's gonna be like the new Happy for the Kids. Like everyone chants and does this chant, and everyone buys their stuff. I see. That's where they're going with them.
Okay.
I hope that because I like those guys.
Me too.
But basically, the opening match was Seth Rollins versus Dolph Ziggler. Obviously, Seth Rollins won. Personally, I thought everybody loved this match. Okay, I love this match too, but I think that the first half of this match was focused more on what was going on outside the ring versus what was going on inside the ring. So it wasn't what an opening match should really be.
Yeah. Okay. It was. I think it really started picking up the last half of the match. That's when, that's when they started actually getting going. Okay. Yeah. I've seen some great stuff from those guys on TV recently. Like, so you kind of just, I don't want to sound like I'm used to seeing them go out there and crushing it, but
yeah, that's where they're put.
Yeah.
They go out there and crush it every night, and it's just a matter of, like, cool, what's next? Like, you do a 22-minute opening match?
I'm waiting for Drew to get the, to get the opportunity.
That was a tweet that you put out.
Yeah, I just want to see what people said, Drew main event, WrestleMania in 3 years.
That sounds right.
He
sounds on the way.
I hope so. You never know. We'll see, like, if they give him the chance and he carries the ball in the end zone or not, but, I think he's got a pretty good. His game is on point in pretty much all aspects. So,
do you see him as the champ at that WrestleMania or chasing for the title?
I don't know, because it's not like anyone can be like they put the title on anyone. That's why I didn't say WWE or Universal Champ. I said main event WrestleMania.
Yeah,
it's a whole different ball game. So.
And then the match after that I thought was actually a lot better than I was previously expecting, which was the New Day against the Bludgeon Brothers. The New Day's taking the win after the Bludgeon Brothers got themselves disqualified. I think that this match, I kind of felt like the people didn't really care that much about this one, mainly because, you know, the Bludgeon Brothers, we haven't really seen their characters completely develop, and, you know, we're used to the New Day and their dance and singing and all of that stuff. But I think that this match had some really good spots in this. We had some really good spots that I think got the crowd like, okay, like this is actually a pretty good match.
But that feel like this.
I didn't like the finish.
Yeah, I hated the finish. It was a 2-week tournament for the New Day to get there, to then have a DQ finish with clearly styrofoam hammers.
And plus, plus, like, they're just people might not care because it's like hard to take it serious. And New Day comes out and does their thing, and I mean that's what they do and all that. But like, there's no like big, you know, I mean, there's no big grudge, right?
It's The New Day's a weird act in that
they're
sense.
Great, but
they're
like
great,
they're at a point right now where it's like they're in a funny spot, like to me, because I mean they're such a big important part of WWE, and they're a great act. But what do you do with them right now?
Yeah, see, that's the thing too, because during this match from the New Day, I felt Biggie Langston was Biggie was the only one that actually, you know, he was the one that really shone through. And I feel like if he was just a one-man team, then, you know, they can do a lot with him. But at the same time, you also risk them, if they break up, you also risk them just kind of like floundering around in the roster, you know?
Yeah. Or maybe they should just take a break.
Perhaps. Like any of it's fine. Like,
yeah, and come back, you know? Use them for other things. I don't know.
Then after that, we had Braun Strowman, who defeated Kevin Owens to keep his Money in the Bank briefcase, which I think obviously after this kept everybody, you know, they're saying that obviously because Braun Strowman kept his Money in the Bank briefcase, we knew that there was a possibility that he would be cashing in during the main event. So it kept people not treating the Brock Lesnar Roman Reigns how a lot of people thought they were going to be treating this match.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, and then
that's true.
To jump ahead, when Braun Strowman was out there for the match, he was literally there to make sure the Brooklyn crowd didn't crap on it. He was literally
that's
insurance,
right. And it worked.
Yeah,
it worked fantastically. Overall, like, okay, when I think of Money in the Bank briefcase and Braun Strowman, they don't go together.
No.
However, that being said, the way they're doing it makes it work. Like, okay, I'm not, you know, he's not doing that cash it in, like run in and jump the guy from behind and get the belt. Like, I like that. And it was a really smart way to use that whole thing at, you know,
SummerSlam.
At SummerSlam.
Yeah.
Yes.
There is some criticism that it makes him look silly. But
I
disagree.
I totally disagree. Like,
I disagree
thought
too,
a little bit, but like, you know, like in like going back and like the only reason I honestly thought that is because I read someone else say it, and then I go back and I'm like, no, it doesn't.
No,
you're just pissing and moaning for the sake of pissing and moaning.
Well, do you think that this hurt Kevin Owens in any sort of way? Because, you know, I think a lot of people thought that maybe he would have put up more of a fight.
You know what hurt? That chokeslam on the outside.
Yeah, like,
holy cow! That's what I took from
literal
SummerSlam was this pay-per-view had the craziest bumps. From the first match to the DDT on the apron, the Biggie, Xavier Woods like backcracker chokeslam on the outside, Charlotte, like everyone.
Charlotte's moonsault, like all of it.
Jeff Hardy, everyone took like horrible bumps this pay-per-view.
And okay, the crowd's deader than shit, and everything hurts even worse. Trust me, that's like one of the reasons that like we hate that it's so awful to.
Work in front of a dead crowd.
Yeah, and like somebody, you know, tweeted me, oh, you know, I'm a musician. I know what it's like. You know, I played. I'm sorry, and I know it sucks for a musician to play in front of a dead crowd or no one there, but it's not even close.
You're not going to hit with your guitar at the end of your set.
Yes, all due respect.
Yeah,
it's just not. It's apples and oranges. We're both performers and we're both performing, but like. When you're getting, like, not to complain, but when you're getting beat up, it hurts worse when there's not a bunch of people making a lot of noise. That's all I'm saying.
And then Charlotte defeated Carmella and Becky as well.
Yeah. I'm just going to go to the... I didn't even realize Charlotte's supposed to be a babyface now.
Because they want to make her do a bunch of Ric Flair stuff, but the Ric Flair... those mannerisms are heelish to begin with.
You just make her look. look like, no. Charlotte babyface, no. Charlotte just Charlotte. You know, like she's just Charlotte Flair. Like she's, you know, like her dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like to say no, like to pigeonhole her as a babyface, that like, because then I didn't know like Becky, like
that was supposed to be a heel turn by Becky Lynch, and then
it wasn't.
The Brooklyn the Brooklyn crowd, you would think Charlotte Flair was the worst person in the ring. It was supposed to be Carmella.
Yes.
Well, the thing is that I just feel that this was Becky Lynch's, you know, everybody wanted her to win this match because, you know, I feel like she's one. Had she won, I think it would have been a lot more refreshing, you know? But now that they're building Charlotte and Becky, I feel like it's going to be great.
The fact that, like, whoever wrote that thought that was going to turn her heel, I'm like, what? Really? Come on.
It was kind of like a Bailey moment.
You talk about
kind of have your
terrible miscalculation. That was, but it was great. It was great. It's just the fact that you thought that was like gonna be a heel thing for her. Come on, people were feeling for her. You know, like they were like they felt her pain.
They literally felt her pain because Charlotte Flair flew in, like just swooped in after Becky Lynch had gotten the title shot and then got her own title shot. Like she came off like a heel in this whole thing.
Yeah, all right. I got enough.
Let's hope for a pivot.
All right, after that we had Samoa Joe who defeated AJ Styles.
Yes. Those guys are great. Both and every time they lock up, it's great. That being said, when you talk shit about my family, talk shit and say the things you said, we're not locking up. We're not locking up collar and elbow. It's just not happening. We're going right to these. And I'm talking about fisticuffs. Jumpstart that thing. You don't lock up. They should have started that thing hot. And then you
feel like once it got hot, and that's when the DQ happened, and, you know, it was kind of like, oh, it was just getting really good. Okay.
So, okay.
Anyways, okay, so after that, we had The Miz who defeated Daniel Bryan. This was one of the matches that everybody, when I asked, hey, what match are you really looking forward to? This is one of the ones that got the most responses.
Yeah. And what about after it was done?
I loved it.
I enjoyed this match a lot.
The brass knuckles finish and everything. You could even see Johnny LaQuasto in the crowd.
Yeah.
It was sad to see like the crowd so dead for a Daniel Bryan match. You know? But I will, what?
Oh, I was going to say that the thing for that is that I think that because of the finish, they should have cut down the match a little bit shorter.
Yeah.
It didn't need to be as long for that finish. It could have been shorter.
Because they took their time. Like, here's the thing. When a crowd is dead, a lot of times guys will tend to rush through the match more. You know? Like, first of all, you're panicking because you're trying to get that reaction. And you know, so you start working harder. You start doing things hard. I mean, there's a lot of things that go on in there, and to be able to take your time and like takes a bit of discipline and patience, and not panicking that the crowd's not there, and understanding why they're not there, and that it's not a reflection necessarily on you.
Yeah, it's just a reflection of the night.
It's just they're fatigued.
They just saw the world championship be defended at like 8:30 at night.
Yeah, and okay, so all right.
Yeah, like
and
it
then,
happened. Yeah.
So then Ronda Rousey and Alexa Bliss. Was that
Oh,
next?
no,
Finn Balor
we
is
still
the
have
demon.
Finn and Corbin and then Shinsuke and Jeff Hardy. Do you want to go to Finn Corbin then?
Yeah,
That was all just the selling action.
I didn't even watch it. I didn't even watch it. Not gonna lie.
I think the argument with this one was why bring out the demon
to sell an action figure.
But like besides that, like for those who didn't think about that, exactly. Like the demon is not. I mean, Corbin shouldn't. It shouldn't be for that match, is what a lot of people are saying. That's what I was thinking too.
I don't think it was for that match. It was for the match the next night. It was to remind everybody what Finn Balor can bring to the table and how much of a threat he can be to the world title picture, to the point where he got a Universal Championship shot the next night. He steamrolled through somebody that's been a thorn in Raw's side for the past however many months Baron's been the constable, and that was enough to have Roman notice him and give him a title shot that he hasn't gotten in 2 years.
Yeah.
So all right, we gotta zip through this. We gotta zip through this shit. Like I get bogged down in the mud sometimes talking about all this shit and getting off into the weeds on different side. But so
Shinsuke Jeff Hardy, or do you want to go to Ronda?
Straight to Ronda.
All right, Ronda Alexa.
Yeah. Okay, Ronda and Alexa. That was pretty risky putting that out. Like, okay, because Ronda, you know, like she's not the underdog, and like not that she was really the underdog versus Nia, but there was still at least that size, David and Goliath size difference. There is no female equivalent of David and Goliath, is there? Anyways,
Not yet.
Matilda the Hun.
Whatever. Anyways, it was risky. It's from my point of view, especially when she sits down in the middle of the ring, Indian style, like, come put the choke on me. Like, that's like, look, as a babyface, that's some risky shit. Sorry.
Like, that, I think it worked. I think it worked in this match.
But it was really risky, and I don't know if it was necessarily worth the risk for the payoff, because I don't think the payoff was that huge.
I do think Alexa Bliss, of all the women on the main roster, is the most able to recover from. Aside from her running away, this was otherwise a squash of Alexa Bliss, which makes Ronda look just unstoppable. Which the character is presented, she's judo throwing grown men, so it makes sense that she's unstoppable heading into this match. Yeah. But I think Alexa Bliss will be fine because Alexa Bliss can talk them into the building. Yeah. She doesn't have to win. She doesn't have to look strong.
I would like to see more Ric Flair style, like hiding in the ropes and like on the knees begging them off in this match of just like, please don't hurt me.
Well, that's why it worked that she was doing the whole sitting down and turning around, because Alexa Bliss was like, she was like,
right,
guys, make it easier for you.
Look, we got to get through this shit. We got Teddy Hart coming up, and we just get so bogged down. I want to talk about Raw, and we're not even freaking finished talking about goddamn SummerSlam yet. Shit.
Well, Roman Reigns finally defeated Brock Lesnar. That's the last thing.
Yada yada yada.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. I think they was very smart how they did it. Everything worked fine. They got through it. Perfect. And Raw was excellent. Raw was tremendous. The last the title match all the way through from the beginning of the title match all the way through the go home. Tremendous. Okay. Oh yeah, I got got a little message from Nitsa. Hey, everyone knows about the risks of drunk driving. Actually, everyone knows about the risks of driving drunk. Sorry about that. You could get in a crash. People could get hurt or killed. But let's take a moment to look at some surprising statistics. Almost 29 people in the United States die every day in alcohol-impaired vehicle crashes. That's one person every 50 minutes. Even though drunk driving fatalities have fallen by a third in the last 3 decades, drunk driving crashes still claim more than 10,000 lives each year. Many people are unaware that driving while high can be just as dangerous. Many people aren't. They're not aware of that, you guys. In 2015, 42% of drivers killed in crashes tested positive for drugs. Not so harmful after all, is it? And get this, from 2007 to 2015, marijuana use among drivers killed in crashes doubled. The truth is, driving while high is deadly, so stop kidding yourself. If you're impaired from alcohol or drugs, don't get behind the wheel. If you feel different, you drive different. Drive high, get a DUI. Drive sober, or get pulled over. All right, we're going to be right back with Teddy Hart. Welcome back to X-Pac 12360, everyone. Joining us over the phone right now is a man I've known since he was a child. Friends with his entire family. I think the world of his family, and in my opinion, he's the most athletically gifted of all the Harts. Ladies and gentlemen, Teddy Hart. Yeah. Teddy.
Oh, thank you so much for the kind words, Sean. I really appreciate it coming from you.
Hey, man, but we've known each other forever. I mean, you know, we would come to Calgary or whatever, and, like, I would see you, TJ, Harry, you know, and it's, wow, man, it's come a long way from then till now. Holy shit.
You were always I think you were always the nicest guy. My dad is pretty fickle about who he holds in high regard as being legit nice guys outside the ring. Some guys forget, and my dad, he always spoke so highly of you, and same with Brett. And guys like Razor Ramon, because of being your friend, and same with Kevin Nash, because I was close to you, those guys were always very nice to me. This is because, I mean, I think that you've seen it all, and I've never seen you with a big head or an ego outside the ring. Always one of the kindest, most humble guys in the world, and one of the best, my opinion, one of the guys like Rey Mysterio, who allowed guys that weren't the biggest guys, but with a lot of talent, to get that opportunity, and to show people that really it's not about size in wrestling, it's about heart and talent. If the guys behind you back it up, and because you were so smart and so nice to the guys that were in political power, I think it basically jump-started a whole bunch of other people getting opportunities in wrestling. So, I mean, that first match you did with Razor Ramon, that was one of the only times it had ever happened like that in wrestling history, where they put a smaller guy over, and from there it showed everyone that, you know, it gave guys joining wrestling schools, especially, I think people don't realize the small impact on that, but it opened doors for everyone that wanted to get into wrestling that didn't think they were big enough, maybe. And that's why I got into wrestling, and one of the reasons I got into wrestling. So I've always been a huge fan of you inside the ring and out.
Thanks, Teddy. Hey, how was when you did you wrestle in school, Teddy? Because I don't think we ever, as many talks as we've had, like, you know, in-depth conversations, I don't think you've ever mentioned like that part.
I did some martial arts stuff, and then I did some, like, I guess back in the day it would have been like considered kind of jiu-jitsu stuff. We had some Russian guys that were training. Oh,
some Sambo guys?
Calgary, some Sambo guys that would come in. My dad had a wrestling school / I guess it was like a hockey school, but because we had the ring up there, a lot of their guys would come up, and they would train. I guess it would be like Sambo and catch wrestling, and me and TJ and Harry did amateur wrestling in school. I did amateur wrestling for 4 years, but I never competed because I always had hockey tournaments. I was a hockey player, so hockey conflicted with the tournaments. But I did wrestle for about probably 4 years. Just like I always thought I would have been a really good amateur wrestler. I always did well in practices, but I never had a match. I was a boxer for years. I boxed for 4 years. I won the Golden Gloves and provincial boxing championships a couple times. I think I had 13 or 14 amateur fights, and I lost 2 and won the rest, which isn't a huge amount of fights, but once you get punched in the face at a young age and you understand the principles of boxing, I was a fantastic boxer. Not trying to blow smoke up my own ass, but I was a fantastic boxer. It beats up your face, and it's like,
well, once you get punched in the face a few times, it's not, you know, pretty soon it's like, whatever. It's like, it's not scary, you know? Like, that's the thing that... I pride myself in being able to take a punch. I've never been knocked out in my life, so I've been sucker punched, and I've been in enough bar fights. Not a lot, but I've probably been in 20 street fights where I still have my teeth, and like, nothing's worse than a street fight than a bar fight. I probably did it to myself, wearing some ridiculous outfits to cowboy hick bars in Calgary and Edmonton, and like Indian reservations and different places where I used to wrestle, tour, doing small shows. So, but I was the boxing saved me for years. Even to this day, I still have really good hands. So same with wrestling punches. You know, Ted, when I said that, when I introduced you, like, I wasn't just blowing smoke. To me, you're the most athletically gifted one of any of the Hearts I've seen. Like, I think that Owen was that person, and then, you know, and then you came.
I always say trying to take. I mean, you think about the guys I had to watch, and if I watched you, and I watched Ray, and I watched Kidman, and I watched Dean Malenko, and we'll say like Benoit, and say Flash Funk or Scorpio, and Mark Merrill when he was there, like, and then you got Dynamite and Tiger Mask, and say, like, there's a list of guys that I could say I had to try to do a little bit of what everyone was doing and then add to it. Otherwise, to me, if you don't, not saying better, but if you haven't advanced and evolved the sport, considering you're the next generation of guys, I don't think you did your homework properly, or you didn't do the right training. So that was something for me. It was the pressure of being Teddy Hart was incredible, and I'm starting to look back and watch old videos now and a lot of highlights and stuff. And I tell fans, please go back and watch, because talk is cheap, and you could talk about all the stuff you did, but if you don't have enough video library to back it up, then it's just words. But if you can go back and watch, I always think I was a guy who risked his life and did as much as I possibly could, probably too much, maybe at the wrong times and stuff. Scared the boys. But I mean, I always thought it was something of like a pride issue, like you did too. I think we always wanted to work hard, and we always wanted to steal the show. And, if guys are watching in heaven, because half the guys I got to train with, or I wanted to aspire to be like, or wanted a pat on the back, were passed away by the time. Like Benoit saw me wrestle like a couple times. He came up to Calgary and trained with us, and he trained with me and Jack. And I think Jack Evans maybe Benoit said he was the greatest bumper he'd ever seen. He said, I've never seen a better bumper, a guy that can make you look good and take the head bumps and like every twist.
Not a quality I want to be known for, just to be honest with you.
God. And so, I mean, we always, most of the guys I got to train with or wanted to, like I say, aspire to be, weren't dead. So I would say if they're in heaven watching, I think they'd be proud of the work ethic I had in the ring. Maybe change my style a little bit now, try to get more longevity out of it. I didn't understand what the boys used to say with less is more, and I do now. And there's a time and place for stuff, and also just you can only crash your car into the wall so many fucking times before the car doesn't work as well. So I've been trying to modify my style to get more mileage, so I can still say, you know, at 55, 60, 70, maybe, you never know, with science, technology, and all the information we have on longevity and stretching and stuff, I could be wrestling till I'm, you know, at least 60 years old.
Oh, so easy. Maybe even more, Teddy. Just no freaking
Especially if you're bringing the cats with you.
The cats give me their lives, right? They pass on their good energy to me. The poor cats are looking at me going, what's this fucking idiot jumping off a cage for?
Teddy, so back when you guys did the Mat Rat stuff, Mat Rats was like it wasn't a promotion so much as it was a TV show, right?
Yeah, it was a pilot that started, and then it was right after Eric Bischoff was, I think after WCW was closing down, and we had a number for Eric Bischoff, and Eric Bischoff was good friends with Jason Hervey and Mark Iadanza, which is Tony Danza's son. They were working with, I think it was Fusion Media, and then they had to deal with Mandalay and Viacom, I think. So we ended up doing basically like a show set up to sell to these networks, which would have been like an MTV gave us some rights to their music. We had to buy like individual songs, or we got like a package deal that we got to use like a certain amount of their videos in conjunction with each one of the wrestlers. So each wrestler would represent a certain genre. And then
but what was the concept? Who came up with the concept and how it became being about like, you know, was there an age limit?
I think it was like 17 to 21.
No, it's something that it was my idea to start training kids after WWE let me go. When I was 18, I got let go, but WWE had given me quite a bit of money, and I was obviously not the most. I'm a smart guy, but I didn't make the most intelligent decisions when I was in WWE. I was all by myself, and I was pretty scared. And but my talent was there, and I guess some of the people in Calgary had realized I'd lost a golden opportunity. But at that time, you can expand or do other things or recreate and try to, you know, put yourself in another spot to be successful. So instead of dwelling on, I was pretty bummed out and not feeling good and didn't want to wrestle anymore. And I thought I'd start training kids, and I trained a bunch of kids, say for 6 months, and they were so good, the kids, that we started doing the Stampede Wrestling shows for Bruce and Ross, and this guy was there filming for them, and he said, I'd rather film you guys than watch a bunch of these guys from the dungeon that are the shits and that they're not very entertaining. I'm going to do a kids show. So he put up the money, raised $1.2 million publicly through a bunch of oil and gas investors built a building for us, got the rings, the lights, and then we did a pilot. And we brought in Eric Bischoff, and the matches were quite choreographed, which was smart. I mean, we knew he was coming, so why not plan and prepare? These kids were so phenomenal with a week to plan each match that we blew Eric Bischoff away and did a lot of really cool moves. The first time I'd ever seen a 630 done, or like the double backflip, or like basically the hype was a bunch of hot young girls in a building, like a little rave type of atmosphere, and really good music, really good lights, some stages so the guys could do dives off balconies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And model it to a younger audience, which had never been done, and with the music as a combination to catch the people's eye, and then the really good wrestling and the really good highlight reels. It was like the first time I'd seen some really good highlight reels besides the WWE production. This was like top-notch production.
Hey, Ted,
a lot of money on.
Ted, didn't you guys have these little platforms on top of the ring posts?
Yeah, I was the first. That was my idea. I designed these platforms. They were supposed to be more like trampolines on top of the rings, but we couldn't get the welding done properly. So we had actually come up with another ring that had skateboard ramps off the corners.
Wow.
We designed these little skateboard ramps off the corners, and we had trampoline strips that were going to pop out kind of like a folding table from underneath the ring.
Yeah.
Like on an airplane, you have like those fucking little tables that are on the front of the seat that you can pop out and then you can put them back down. That was the concept we were going to do, but we never got to that level because we got all the way up to the deal. We signed a big deal for TV, and we had pay-per-view and everything set up, but the day Eric Bischoff flew down to sign the deal was the day 9/11 happened. And nobody really knows that. And that's what happened. Matt Rats got put on hold because 9/11 happened. It was a world tragedy. And it just put a...
Matt Rats didn't get put on hold. The world got put on hold, man. Damn.
Yeah, everything got changed. That day, everything changed, you know.
Hey,
so
Jack,
no one really
Jack
knows
was...
that story.
Oh, yeah, the story. Oh, so, yeah. Well, I mean...
So that's what had happened. And then it took 3 years to get it put back on TV. And at that time, Wrestling Society X started coming up with an idea, which was basically like a copy of Matt Rats, because Jason Hervey had taken his concept and gone to Kevin Kleinrock and had gone to Houston Alexander, I think his name was. You remember?
Houston Curtis.
All that stuff.
Houston Curtis.
Yeah, he was the guy. He owned that other company, right? What was his name? Houston Alexander? Is that
No, it's Houston Curtis. And Houston
Curtis, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they took the concept and modified it and did an okay job with it. I remember you saying there was a bunch of things you thought could have changed and it would have made them much more successful. And same with Vampiro had said some things, but they didn't seem to listen to the guys that knew. And Sean knew very well exactly what he had said. I think if they followed Sean's advice on certain things with the show and cutting certain guys off the show that were okay instead of making it a friend system, I think they could have got a much stronger roster of guys, considering it was for TV, and some much better bands to play, and would have made a way better impact on the way the show was taken. But I mean, they did that, and Graham Owen turned out to be, and sadly, but he was flying marijuana in with airplanes at the time to make the money for the Mat Rats, and we didn't really know this we were all kids, 19, 20, 21, and I grew a lot of weed in the States at that time. So I had licenses, and I was aware of the price of marijuana from Canada to the States, and I always questioned kind of how he raised his money and how he got his money. And it turned out when he came down to visit for Wrestling Society X, the actual day of the taping, he flew down from Calgary to Los Angeles, him and another guy, two pilots that I had known, and I'd introduced them to each other because they were supposed to work together. The guy was looking for time in the air. So if he got time in the air, he would get, I guess, a better job with Air Canada or Delta. But you get to like fly these little planes, and you learn about the business of being a pilot, I guess, and then you get more hours. The more hours you have, I guess, the better job you can get later. So those two got arrested at the airport and charged under the Patriot Act for acts of terrorism for flying marijuana into the States. And I think they got 10 years each.
Wow.
And that was the day of Wrestling Society X, the day it started filming. So me and Jack and Tyson Kidd, obviously he was going to WWE at the time. I think he was just about to go to
Florida?
I think it would have been Deep South.
Oh,
yeah,
Deep South.
Deep South at the time. Him and Harry and Natty went to Deep South. And because Jack and I were signed to Wrestling Society X contracts, we couldn't go to WWE at the time, and we had to stay. And they were expecting to do 3 seasons for Wrestling Society X, so we thought we were in a good spot. And
well, we were hoping to get Teddy. We were hoping to get the second season at least, because the truth is, like, okay, the numbers weren't like off the charts, but they were strong numbers. And it was
still pretty strong. Like EDCW the first 2 weeks, I think, in the ratings,
Yeah.
still had pretty strong ratings.
Yes, and the main problem was the program director at MTV had changed, and the person was not just they weren't interested in us at all.
They were just ready to let head roll. Like there was a huge change up top.
Yeah,
at MTV.
because Teddy, I don't know if you remember this, but I don't know if it's how it played up like where in Canada, if you were up there when they actually played that on MTV. At one point, they just played them all back to back just to get it over with. Like, they just wanted done with
it. Also, they cut a bunch of the spots out that they said were dangerous. Also, the fireball got turned into some video game looking kind of like fire, like from a Street Fighter fucking video game or some shit. I remember there was a bunch of stipulations.
Hey, didn't you zap somebody? Didn't you electrocute somebody? I mean,
I killed the referee or something, and I electrocuted Nate Webb with the fucking thing, and then we did a couple other. The ring blew up. That was like the big thing that the ring blew up the last match.
Hey, do you remember when we did the pilot?
Oh yeah,
when we shot the pilot. Do you remember when New Jack showed up with the crack dealer with the purple suit on, in 105 temperature, and this guy standing out in the heat like with this suit on, and oh man, New Jack was classic. People are like, some people are horrified by New Jack. I'm a huge New Jack fan, in spite of.
He's always nice to me.
Yes, and to me, and. Yeah.
So I had nothing bad to say about it. I mean, people have all sorts of shit to say about me, and sometimes I'm sure good and bad. But if you meet the guy, I'm always polite. Respect's given. If you give me respect, I'll always give you respect back. New Jack's, I think, one of those guys that if you're polite to him and you're nice to him, he's not going to go out of his way. But if you have a bit of an attitude, he wants to check you. He's definitely going to be someone that I wouldn't want on my bad side or pissed off at a show, because he's pretty crazy.
Yeah, he beat up Brian Knobbs a few years back.
So what's up with this guy?
He was shooting pretty tough though, New Jack, wasn't he?
I imagine. You get that impression anyways, don't you?
Enough to stab you or something.
Sure. It's just like some people are willing to go to greater lengths than other people. I mean, that's part of it right there. So yeah. But yeah, Ted. That was some interesting stuff, that WSX. Hey, Ted, a lot of people don't know. Actually, probably most people don't know that you and I lived together. We're down in Mexico together for a long time. I think
I fucked you over on a protein powder or something. You gave me like $100 to buy some protein powder, and I got the wrong flavor on your.
You probably did it on purpose. I don't care, Teddy. It's $100. Jesus Christ.
Dude, you helped me out many times down there, and bought my meals and took really good care of me and Jack, and were kind of like a big brother to me down there. I know you had tried to get me and Jack in WWE a couple times. You'd put us over to Johnny Ace.
Yeah.
They ended up going with Mystico instead. But I remember you were the one that got the other Mystico a job. You bragged about how good he was. The one from Juarez.
Yeah.
I remember when John Ace called you that you were on speakerphone, and you
Sin
put
Cara.
some names out there to him, and you put some names out there to him. And I remember thinking how powerful your word was, because right after you said it, they signed him. And I still say that to this day. I'm not trying to get a job, but I don't like to do too many podcasts. And I canceled last week because I was really looking forward to doing a podcast, and I wasn't in the best headspace because
of Gem passing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was dealing with some problems with my car and where I was staying, and so I wanted to do something where I was in the right headspace. I did a shoot interview like 3 weeks ago, and I was fucking miserable, and I was in a bad mood, and Harry had kept me waiting like 4 hours, and the shoot interview was the shits. It's one of the few ones I canceled, actually. I had them just shut the tape off after like an hour and a half because I wasn't in the right spot to be answering questions. And sometimes if it's a bad day, wait till it's a better day and
That's right.
You're in a better perspective to things, because the last thing you want to do is be held on tape or on record. And I've been subject to be where maybe I said too much before, or I was having, it was certain things came across about guys where I wish I could go back and say something and maybe mention more positive things about it, because this business is one of those things that I'd rather be known as the guy that told the truth, but also to try to find a brighter side to every situation, because it's a nasty, ugly business, and it's a fucking brutal it's a fucking terribly ugly world, but at the same time, it's a beautiful, beautiful business, and it's a fucking unbelievable planet, and it's a wonderful thing to be a wrestler at certain times. And it's like some days you're happy, and it's the roller coaster of life, and try to get the right message across to the fans. When you are given a time to speak, make sure you have something nice to say about people and try to stay positive. And I'm not trying to suck guys' dicks and kiss asses and be one of those guys either, but I think like there's usually a way of saying things that gives everyone a positive spin instead of being a guy that's just bitching and crying about spilt milk and fucking complaining about this and this and this.
Teddy,
mention the things that are going to be nice and make people happy and remember your name, put a positive taste in your mouth.
And that just comes with maintaining a positive attitude. Like, I mean, and yeah, sometimes we have a shitty day, Ted, and man, it's so nice to hear you say that you think about that now, and you don't want that to be like immortalized forever, like the words you would say on a shitty day like that, you know. Teddy, true. I mean, you know, every like people that know about you know like that, you know, obviously about your struggles, and like they know about mine, and it just seems like lately, man, things have you've gotten a lot more stable for you, huh?
This has been year 2 of not smoking weed, and it's been 4 years without doing any GHB. Which I mean, if we're gonna be straight up and talk. I've never done cocaine before. I never took painkillers, and I've never done I never did speed or any like the real hard drugs. I never did. I've done ecstasy before back in the day. I mean, I used to go to raves and hang out with all sorts of girls and party, but certain drugs would have killed me. My personality. I have an addictive personality. Bruce Lee had a rule: know yourself.
Yeah.
And if you know yourself, and I was around drugs enough and sold marijuana a lot, and as a drug dealer, we'll say as a marijuana dealer, I never really sold any hard drugs, but as a marijuana dealer, the drug premise is don't get high on your own supply, and if it's a drug that you can't give to your friends, I don't want to sell it. And if I have people coming back and selling their fucking baby carriage and their rings to buy a drug, that's not a drug I want to represent. Yeah. So I was always aware of what drugs I could get away with doing. And GHB at the time seemed to be something good that I was using to help me sleep. And then, like anything else, too much kills you. And it probably took 5 to 7 years off my career where I wasn't in the right headspace, and I didn't really care if I made the booking or not, or I would rather just stay home and fucking and party and hang out and sleep, or go to bars and fucking hang out with girls and do whatever I guess I was doing for years. And I lost some really good years. For anyone out there,
yeah.
Kids and guys out there, you got to be really careful with that type of stuff, because something that starts off as a small habit turns into a huge monster nightmare.
Yeah.
And it affected my relationship with Conan and my reliability with promoters, and it put I mean, you got to be honest with things. You can do these interviews and try to live in a fairy tale fantasy world, or talk about things that were not accurate, but then your validity, your word goes to shit. And then I think in shoot interviews, I'm one of the guys that's the most honest with stuff and hard on himself. And I'm trying to forgive myself now for time wasted, and I'm 38 years old, and I did a WWE show 2 nights ago where I just showed up after the show, and it was so nice to see how many people came up to me and said they'd watch my tapes and they'd listen to my interviews and shoot interviews and podcasts, and that they had so much respect for me that because I told the truth. They said you're always honest, and you did so many moves and innovated so much stuff that you set a measuring stick for wrestlers all over the world, and that don't forget who you are kind of thing. And I thought at least that was kind of like some closure for me, where I've been bitter, not bitter so much with the business, but bitter with certain things in my own, like looking in the mirror and having to swallow, maybe I shouldn't have said that, or maybe I could have done it a different way. And nothing's worse than trying to you can't go back in time and change it, and you just fucking mull it over and over, and you drive yourself nuts. So I've been trying to find ways to get closure and forgiveness, and go back and thank people that I maybe should have thanked, or go back and say sorry to people that I didn't say something good about. I said something only bad about, instead of saying something good. You should be able to find something good in almost everybody in this business, because we work together and we're supposed to be a family and a team. There's certain guys that are real fucking assholes out there, but maybe just better not to even mention them.
Yeah.
Because there's so many other guys you could say something nice about. You took 5 minutes to say something about somebody who's a piece of shit. Instead of that time, you could have said something about somebody nice.
Ted, you know, we're never going to be able to make amends to everyone, to go and find every single person we pissed off, or said something screwed up to or whatever. Like the best thing we can do is just put ourselves out there living our great life, and doing the right thing now, and people will see that, Ted, and the word gets around quick. I know because it's happened with me. Because like Teddy, you could talk like. I can totally relate to you, man, when you talk about wasted years and really the best, like what people consider our best years, right? Like our 20s and even in our 30s, right? Like, shit, man, I wasted almost my whole decade in my 30s. I won't say wasted because I'm here now and like I have all these experiences that make me who I am today, but man, like that's a lot of time that we can never get back. And I could spend a lot of time like beat myself up over it or get over it. Like, and I've chosen to get over it, man. Here's the thing is we know that like, okay, it's never too late, but it's later than we think. That's all, and
because you were one of the guys I really wanted to talk to about this specific subject because you're one of the guys that fought for his life and came back, I think, stronger, smarter, classier, and one of the most well-liked guys that people wanted to do more for, but you can't drag a horse to the water and make it drink. We had to come to this realization in our own time and want to heal ourselves and take the proper steps to be relied on again, and to be. Sometimes people don't want to see it because it's a tragic story almost.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be remembered as a tragic story or the guy that had the most potential in wrestling history who never made
Teddy.
it. It's like I always hope that guys like you, Sean, can go, hey, listen to the people because the most powerful people in wrestling. I've never asked for a job. I never sent a tape into WWE ever. I've never sent the tape or tried to write a letter or showed up at a show in the back. In 20 years, I've never showed up in the back of a WWE locker room trying to get in just to talk to the guys. I'll meet them at the hotel or I'll go to their houses or something. But to me, this time now, I put a message out where I know Triple H is your friend, and I know Shawn Michaels is your friend, and I know Kevin Nash is your friend, and Razor Ramon is your friend, and these guys, they're guys you don't bullshit. You know what I mean? And when I ask somebody, I wanted to be in a spot where I could say, this is the best shape I'm in. Obviously, I'm a little older, but mentally and physically and spiritually, this is the best place I've been in. I've been humbled. I spent a year in jail. I've learned to shut my mouth and also speak when it's meant to be. I mean, there's a time and place you can't always just be a fucking puppet or shut your mouth and not say anything, or a yes man. But there's a time and place to express your opinion and to shut the fuck up and just work with guys and make the promoters happy, show up early on time, do my job to be relied on as a normal person in wrestling that's a changed man. Being a changed man, it's a hard thing. Nobody fully changes, but you remember where you had weaknesses, and then to really concentrate on doing things that people are going to go, this guy's learned his lesson. He can be trusted or relied upon. And I say this to you, the reason I took this interview was to tell you that because I saw you do certain things, it showed me that it could be done. And I watched you in Mexico, and you still went out there, and your knees were sore, I remember, and you were wrapping your knee, and you still went out there, and you gave me and Jack a bunch of offense and took stuff. And that was the first time where anyone in the world ever got to see the Hart Foundation versus a member of DX, like the first, where TJ and Natty were doing stuff with Shawn and Triple H on TV, and Harry, but I never got that opportunity. So you were the closest thing I ever got to making that rivalry happen, or to take advantage of the situation. And you were like my brother. Brett always said you were like the Hart Foundation. You were like the inside guy, kind of, that he always considered you like the go-between. That you were the one guy that everybody liked. It's so hard to be on both sides without being a fence rider, but because you were so smart and
man. It's tough. I was talking because Harry was on the other week, not last week, but the week before, and we were talking about that, like when the whole Montreal Screwjob thing happened and all of that, and I was just feeling like for you guys were still really young back then, and Brett's kids, because they all loved us. They, all you guys, like they didn't know, like, okay, like these guys are like. My family and there's heat there. You guys, and so when all that shit happened, I felt really bad, and I thought, man, that must be really awkward and messed up for you guys as kids.
That whole thing, I think, I won't say cost me, years in my career, but it definitely affected the unity of our family plus the WWE family, because I think Brett and Sean were good friends before that, and it put guys like you in an awkward spot, and that whole rift. I mean, the stuff with WCW where some of your friends left and went there, and then Brett going after and hitting Vince, I think was one of the worst things that ever happened in wrestling history. I say this to this day. I mean, if I could go back in time and change maybe two things, I would probably ask for my young brother not to have the flesh-eating virus and to be given an opportunity to wrestle with our family, and for Brett probably not to have, it would have been that, or to have Owen in a different spot. But I think Brett, that situation caused, not on purpose, but it caused Owen to end up in that situation too, where it's like a ripple effect.
Yep.
And like a lot of the ripple effects, like where Davey wasn't in the right headspace after he tried to make his comeback, but he's by himself, and Jim suffered definitely from not being in the WWE system, because the structure in WWE compared to WCW at the time, WCW was pretty wild, and it wasn't the same thing. Guys could do whatever they wanted. They're making a lot more money, doing a lot less stuff. So the ripple effect of that Montreal screwjob fucked everybody over huge. And I was 18. I was the youngest guy in the world to ever sign with WWE, and that was when I was signed, was right after Brett punched Vince, and it was a really weird place to be. And I never got to have any time with my family. I saw Owen once, I think, and then I was released for being a fucking idiot and young and stupid and not taking advantage of a golden opportunity. But I think if I had my uncles there, protecting me, or even someone like you but I wasn't on the road, but I didn't have any guys to tell me what to do or to take me under their wing or show me. Steve Regal actually was one of the few guys that tried to kind of help me out and steer me in the right direction.
Yeah.
And I had said something on a shoot interview before, and it came across wrong because the way they cut these interviews sometimes, but he was actually one of the nicest guys in the world to me, and he helped me out and told me what not to do. And of course, I'm one of those guys that has to learn the fucking hard way. And he said not to do this, this, and this. And of course, I did this, this, and this, and then wondered why I ended up in the situation I was in. But
still there?
It can be like, this is where I made mistakes, and this is where I can learn to fix it. And I wish certain things didn't happen, but I can only try to fix the future. And I think that's one thing with talking to you, is I wanted to tell you that I took some pages out of your book and tried to heal myself and go to rehab and get clean and come back as a different person so I could make fans happy. And all the guys like James, who was like a big fan of mine for years, who spent James, for obviously you guys, I don't know if you know who James is. Is James an on character, or does he just help with the
No,
with the stuff
I'm here.
behind
I'm here sitting on the couch taking notes.
But James was a guy that believed in me and helped me out years ago, and I heard he was with you. I was so happy because his dad had taken me into his home and treated me like family, and then he had called me and said his dad had passed, and I was bummed out about that. And then the next day, Jim had passed. It was like back-to-back, and then he said he was working with you and you wanted to do a podcast, and I was like, if it's with Sean, I said, I'll do it. I said, I love Sean. He's one of my favorite guys in wrestling. And I said, I've had a lot of little experiences with Sean that are kind of private moments that we had in Mexico and different things, like with the Hoovy shit and like with Jack and like strippers.
Oh,
and, like,
all the Hoovy stuff.
We're pretty, and I just always thought, I'm like, we're pretty close. And I'm like, if there's anyone that could actually talk to you, and I say this again, Triple H is a guy I never met. I never met Triple H in all my years, and like I thought he did a great job with WWE. I thought he did an unbelievable job with the cards he had, and to get to the top and to run the business and to keep his spot and to rarely ever get injured for how much work he did. And like Brett doesn't like him, and Brett says bad stuff, and then it's like it's a reflection of the Hart family, because Brett sort of speaks for the family. It's like Brett doesn't speak for fucking me though, and I know I'm not a guy that's trying to kiss ass, or like I want to go kiss Triple H's ass or Stephanie's ass or Shane's ass. But I always liked Shane McMahon. He was always nice to me. Stephanie McMahon was always very nice to me. And I never got to talk to Triple H or knew him. And I'm like, if there's one guy that could at least tell the truth and say, listen, I know Teddy for 20 years, and like this is the cleanest I've seen him, or the clearest I've seen him, or the most sensible. And like, I really want a job in WWE someday, even as a trainer or something. And like that's my goal. Where like before, I never really cared. I just wanted to survive and be known as a guy for indie wrestling kind of legends that worked the hardest and made guys have to compete and climb up and do cool shit off the top ropes and to carry on the name that way. But you want some closure on your career. I'd love a doll made. I'd love to be in a pay-per-view someday. And like besides Mexico, I never had that opportunity. And AAA is amazing, and it's a great place to stay alive and to work. But there's only one WWE out there, Sean. You know that better than anybody, right? So
sure. Well, Ted, here's the thing, Ted. Like, okay, man, you just keep doing what you're doing. Keep showing up to and people keep hearing good things. You know, you'd be surprised what happens, man. Because and you're talking about like your story, Teddy. You're like, write your own story, man. Don't let other people tell your story for you. That's your freaking story, man. And you can choose the ending. It doesn't have to be a shitty ending, you know. It's up to us, and it's amazing, man, when we're doing the right things. No matter how effed up some of the shit we've done is, like, people will start coming back around and want to be on the Teddy Hart train. It's crazy, man.
Sean, it's a fucking battle every day to stay positive and to deal with the cards that God gives you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, life's a casino, and if you quit and you fold, then might as well get a gun and shoot yourself in the fucking head and tap out. And I never tapped out in life. I just want fans to know that are guys that are in wrestling that are in a dark spot or that have had struggles and stuff. There's a brighter day if you don't stop and if you keep going.
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of motivational speeches now, and I go to the gym instead of listening to rap music and and try to get pumped up. I listen to guys talk about their journey and their struggle to get to a spot where they're happy with life and they can look in the mirror and be, I guess, aware of where they were and how they got there and how to never be there again, and to be in a spot where down the road, people that are my friends and fans can go, man, I really could live through him now. I can live through his experiences and his story. And the guy's a fucking fighter. I fight for my life every day.
Yeah.
I try to go out there to maintain a certain look in the gym. Go to the gym every day, try to eat healthy, and to make the comeback count. Nothing's worse than a comeback when you see the guy and he's fat and he's lazy and he's out of shape and he's trying to milk on the name he had before. And it's like, I wanted my name to get bigger and better and to make this comeback count. So talking to you, and I say this again, like, I know who you are in this business, and I know how much your word means, and you don't vouch for anybody unless they earned it. And that's why I say, like, I asked Brett to vouch for me a couple years ago, and we don't have the best relationship, and he's so busy with other things that I kind of looked at you as like one of the other uncles that I have, that if I can impress you with truth and, you know, validity of actions speak louder than words, and talk is cheap, and then go, hey, Sean, please, like, do whatever you can to put a word in for me. I asked Jericho the same thing. I'm like, give me a couple years, and this is like me telling you now, I'd like a year to keep going in the direction I'm going, because this is the most indie bookings I've ever had. This is the most shows I've ever made without missing a show or being late or having any problems. So it's just like, it's a new light for me. It's a new life for me. It's strange being in a city like Philadelphia ware I don't really know anybody, but I get to be a wrestler now. Before, I was a part-time wrestler. I never was a full-time wrestler, and I always had other ways of making money. Where now I have an understanding of the struggles guys have for being on the road, being away from their family. I have a new we won't say a sympathy but I have an empathy, I guess we'll say, for being a pro wrestler. I never knew how hard pro wrestlers had to work to make that money, and how their body breaks down, and the constant battle of trying to come up with new stuff and to stay motivated. And, I mean, these are ways you reinvent yourself. Every couple of years, you got to go out there and reinvent yourself as a wrestler and try to do new moves and come up with a way of making yourself relevant to this new fan base.
Yeah, Teddy, you always kept yourself in really good shape, and like amazing shape, and also, maybe I'm wrong, but I have a feeling all this shit came kind of easy to you as far as you being a natural.
I was lucky, maybe too easy for certain things where, you know, I'm trying to go back to gymnastics now. I've been saying this for 2 years, that I wanted to go back to gymnastics and really learn to do my stuff that I used to do. I mean, I haven't cut out a lot of moves, but I cut out a couple of moves off the top just because I was getting heavier, trying to put on some muscle, and I didn't know if it was worth the risk. But it's one of those things where I feel like when I take bookings now, I've tried to come up with some new moves. I think of myself as the most innovative wrestler in the world still to this day. I think I've invented the most moves ever. And I ask guys to watch like my top 55 moves and like
top 55 moves. So, I'm sorry, Daddy.
I think of myself as the most innovative wrestler ever. So and that's my claim to fame, is at least that you can watch Teddy Hart steal some of my shit or modify it. And just I probably didn't play stuff right, Sean. You know how it is. Like,
sure, man.
And now you learn with experience and trying to last as long as you possibly can, when and where to do stuff and to play stuff. And same thing with young guys. Of like, sometimes there's a way of doing things. If you're the first match, you don't need to do 40 things because it makes it hard for the guys that got to go out on the last two, the last two matches of the show. A certain structure of the way the cards are set up.
Yeah, you used to be the guy, Teddy. Teddy, you used to be the guy that didn't give two shits about who had to go on after you. You were getting your shit in, man.
I could have a lot of guys' asses, and it cost me money. It cost me my job. I'm sure that was one of the reasons in Ring of Honor that got me a lot of heat.
But think about it this way, Ted. Okay, in spite of all like those crazy things that people, when they talk about you from like in the crazy times, like, people still booked you, and you still got work, and you were still like, the people still wanted to see you. So like that goes to show you how really, really good you must be, man, if people are willing to put up with that shit. So can you imagine now, like, that once people get to know that Teddy Hart's like a joy to be around now in the locker room, and it's great to have him on the shows, and, he's cooperative in the matches, and, like, can you imagine then, like, you're going to be, like, pretty high demand, Ted.
Sean, I beg you, and I rarely ask anyone for anything in this world. If it's the truth and you see it, and it's my reputation by working hard and consistency of behavior. My dad always talked about it, and I had problems with that where I was inconsistent sometimes.
I love your dad. BJ, I love your dad, by the way. Please give him my love. Your mom and your dad both.
I was doing your podcast. He told me, I told him today I was doing your podcast, and he said, well, you understand who Sean is. He goes, there's probably not a guy closer to Vince and those guys. He goes, Shane. He goes, nobody. Dude, you've told me stories of stuff that you've done and guys and where no one else is around, just you and that guy in a hotel, or relationships you've cultivated over the years. You truly are. You are their family, and they protected you. But you are one of those guys like me that sometimes just wants to do it your way or wants to go on your own. And when it's time, you'll call to let them know you're safe. But you're like, I think you and I are very similar on that level where we march to the beat of our own drum. And now it's time for me to go, hey, like, listen.
It's not bad to march to the beat of someone else's drum once in a while, Ted.
Exactly. And there's
especially if they got a good beat going.
Listen, like, whatever I can do to make people trust me and to get to a spot where maybe I get that call someday. And I hope that by not saying what I want, it's like another reason for people to say, fuck him. Now we really know what he wants. But it's like,
don't worry.
I have to put it out there. This is I have a certain amount of years left, good years left. And I'd like something good to happen. I'd like the guys that are in power. And I know who you are as a talent scout. And you don't have to be a WWE agent to be a WWE agent. And because your word means so much. You are one of the most talented wrestlers in the history of wrestling, Sean. You recognize talent where some other guys are looking for other variables. They're looking for the big guy, or they're looking for, a guy that's got a character or certain look, where I think you are one of the guys that directly represents talent. This guy can go. This guy's one of the best wrestlers in the world, and he can go, and he's changed his attitude, and his mindset's different, and he's someone you can rely on who's going to show up and not be fucked up or not get caught with drugs, or can pass a piss test now, or can put a guy over if that's what
I can definitely pass a piss test.
Yeah, me too. That's one of the. Like I said, when I saw you at the show, I was so happy to see that you were in a spot where you told me, you're always honest. If you're fucked up or you're not feeling good, you'll be the first one to say this is where I'm at or whatever. But when you told me this is the best you're feeling and you're happy, and I was like, oh, dude, I'm in the same spot. Thank God we got there at the same time, because it gives me someone to talk to. I don't try to bother guys too much, but now that I have your number again, and like I can talk to you like just once or twice a month, just to talk to you and get some advice and perspective, and just to say hi and I love you and thanks. It's nice to have someone that cares and I consider family, because I don't have too much family left, especially after Jim dying.
You're
like the next closest. I spent more time with you, Sean, than almost anybody in my family. I think for sure.
That's probably true.
In Mexico and stuff, you're one of the guys that really has. You're connected to the top people in this business, and I never saw you use those people to get ahead. You never, like, you did so much shit where you could have been trying to get a job and stay there and take advantage of situations or your friends, where you always did it on your own.
Well, here's the thing about that, Ted, is I knew that I didn't have my shit together enough to go back there looking for a job. So, and now that I do, I'm not in a hurry to go get a job there. So, like, that's the great thing. If they want me, they know how to get a hold of me.
Of course.
But Ted, you know, you do have some people that love you, man. Like I talk to TJ about you sometimes. Like, oh, you know, your family loves you, man.
Tyson Kidd is one of the toughest, coolest, most real guys you'll ever meet in this business, and he's done a lot to help me out. When I was in jail, he paid for my lawyer.
I know.
He put money on my books. He took my calls every day.
Yeah.
And he was busy, and he was disappointed that I made some stupid decisions, that I was, you know, stuck in that position. And him and Natty, they went way out of their way to help me out. And that's just, like, I can't say enough good stuff about TJ and the struggle that he had as a kid and growing up, you know, very poor, and no one ever helped TJ out at all. He did it.
Yeah.
I mean, our family put him in a spot to be successful, but to be in that spot, you got to be very smart, and you got to walk the walk, and you got to talk the talk.
Yeah.
You got to put out the work.
I just wanted
I don't
to.
think there's a harder working guy than TJ or Natty. Those are the two of the hardest working people in my life, and inspirations for me, that if they could do it and go through all the shit they went through. And TJ's walking around after breaking his neck,
Should be dead.
bitter and fucking angry and holding a grudge. And he went back and played ball and made it possible for our family to keep their name alive.
Yeah.
Imagine if he was causing problems and was hard to deal with and wanted a lawsuit, and it could have been a really ugly situation.
Most people die. Most people die that get that injury, by the way. I mean, he was basically almost like technically decapitated in a way.
Yeah, I don't know how he did it. I think it's because God protected him, because he's such a good person.
And the strong neck. But I just wanted to acknowledge that them in relation to helping you get where you are right now, because I didn't know that, and it's really cool that that they still, like, were there, because sometimes people just go, I've had enough, and we don't forget those people. We don't, I don't blame people for going, I've had enough at all. But I never forget the ones that hung in there. Yeah. And so, hey, let me let you guys in here in on this, because I've monopolized this conversation for a while, before we go.
Well, before we go, I just want to get your thoughts on the passing of Anvil.
I thought Jim was, to me, one of the nicest, funniest, coolest guys you'll ever meet. Like X-Pac, when he's just so cool and always there to talk after the show, to have a beer with you, and was real. Gave you great advice. Maybe certain things some guys practice what they preach, and it's like they're real straight. And Jim was always honest about everything, and said, this is how to do it, and maybe I'm not doing it this way, but this is how to do it. His advice was always sound on how to get to where you needed to be, and he trained so goddamn hard. He was so strong in the gym. He was an inspiration for me, that no matter what state of mind Jim was in, he always went to the gym.
He did, man.
Went to the gym.
Yeah, he would go to
strong, and people had no idea how strong Jim Neidhart was. He was a beast in the gym, and he loved animals. He was always so nice to the animals. He's one of the very first guys to get me into Persian cats breeding, and he told me about getting. He was the first one to ever buy a Persian cat. So I mean, there's small things. Jim was the first guy to ever come to a show with me. He did a show in Can-Am when I was 17 years old, wrestling in a bar. And because Jim came, they put the belt on me. Same thing with Jersey All Pro. Jim was the only one that ever had time to show up, and maybe because some of the other guys had passed away already, but for whatever it was, Jim got on the airplane, showed up, helped me and Jack win our first tag team titles in the ECW building, one of the highlights of my career. We sold out the building, and Jim came and did a run-in, and he was a great father to Natty, especially. They spent so much time together. He was so proud of her. I watched a video last night, Natty. I was with the WWE girls last night, Natty and Bailey and another girl, Sasha Banks. They had pulled me aside to say how much they had watched and my comeback, and how impressed they were and how proud they were of me. And I said, one of the reasons I did this was because of guys like Jim and because of guys like you, Sean, where I wanted to be able to look you in the eyes and go, I finally figured it out, and I learned, and I don't want to be I don't want to be having those memories where I let people down that vouch for me, or they believed in me, or they saw my potential, and I couldn't look them in. When I go to heaven, I don't want to be standing at the gates of purgatory with a bunch of guys going, what the fuck, dude? You should have figured it out after 25 years, 30, 40, 50 years, or however long I get to live on this, amazing planet for. That, if you can't figure it out after a certain amount of time, then something's wrong with you. And I didn't want to be one of those guys. And I thought Jim came and helped me out, and he vouched for me, and Sean vouched for me, and there's certain guys that I wanted to be able to say thank you to, and that I did learn, and I did figure it out, and that I stepped back on the horse of life and the horse of being a wrestler, and I'm trying to ride that horse without getting bucked off or without quitting.
Hey, Jim was a big, powerful man until the day he passed. He never looked like an old man. He always looked like Jim the Anvil Neidhart, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. I think he was in a really good spot when he passed away.
Yeah.
He said he got to see his family, and he was close with Ellie again. And they've had their years where Jim was on the road, or Jim was traveling, or Jim was gone, and Ellie was the most loyal wife ever. Ellie is like my inspiration for really everything I ever did in wrestling for the last, say, 3 years, because I wanted to quit and just pack it in, and I lost everything in my divorce. And Ellie got on me huge and said that Grampy wouldn't be proud of you, and Owen's watching, and that if you ever need any help, she helped me out so many times. And that was because Jim was such a big fan of mine that Ellie always said Jim considers you kind of like his son, because Jim never had any sons, so that he always considered you, because I was the firstborn, and obviously Jenny's the secondborn, where Jim, he always took me under his wing. And his passing, it was I slept for 3 days after. I was so sad, and then Natty said, stop, you got to celebrate his death and get up and fight, and he'd want you to go to the show, and you don't need to come to the funeral. You have bookings. It's more important for you to take these bookings and to keep your name alive right now, and keep our name alive, and fight for your fucking comeback, and don't use this as an excuse to go back down the dark path at all. And I was quite upset and sad, and I had to look in the mirror and find that positive side to things, that Jim lived a wonderful life, and that he had made a lot of people happy, and that he was in a good spot, and that he was successful for the last 10 years of his life. He'd done really well to get into a spot where he was clean, and he was Jim had his own demons and had to go to rehab and deal with all sorts of stuff, and he fought for his life, and he came back and did Total Divas, and he was held accountable for a lot of stuff where other people would have never put that on blast, we'll say. They would have never let that side be open, and Jim was open to the public about WWE Rehab saved my life before too, and I think it saved Jim's life. And I thank a guy named Bob Keeler, who Bob was one of the guys that sent me to the rehab program when I needed it. I was having problems with marijuana. It was really starting to become a problem, but the WWE Rehab doesn't really accept marijuana as a problem. And GHB was stuff I had got off on my own, but it was like a battle. I was my first year getting clean from it, so it was like the second year, I think. And I talked to Jim about it, and he said you could maybe just go to the rehab program and go there for a couple of months and see if it helps you get some closure. And you've dealt with a lot of death and a lot of weird situations that have happened, and it's hard to get help just by dealing with people. Go to somewhere else where this is professional people that are strangers to you, but that way you have to be held accountable. You can't hide around people you're comfortable with. You can get away with things, or they won't call you on your shit. And that was something that Jim told me to get my shit together and go to the right people and go to the proper places and make it count. This time I got into rehab a couple times and just fucked around and was stretching and doing flips and didn't care about any of the stuff.
I know. I know you came through Menninger Clinic for a cup of coffee, Teddy. So I'm aware. That Menninger Clinic, I'm a Menninger Clinic alumni, so that's why I know Teddy was there. Anyways, go ahead.
Teddy, so Triple Mania is coming up August 25th, and I wanted to know if you had any predictions on who would be losing their mask.
Are you talking about AAA?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm on Triple Mania for this. It's coming up this week, isn't it?
Yeah, August 25th, right?
Yeah, it's this Saturday, I believe, yes. I don't know yet. I can't say. I really don't know. I would, if I told you this, it's gonna sound bad. I don't even know who's on the show. I just know that me and Jack and Juventud are in a match against I think Superfly, Averno, and somebody else.
And Chessman.
I've been traveling so much and dealing with what had happened with Jim for this last week. I haven't seen the card. and I'm not a really big person on the computer, so it's my own stupidity for not doing more homework on the card. But I could bullshit you and tell you something, and if they're not even in the match, I'm going to sound like a real horse's ass saying this guy, I hope he loses and doesn't lose his
Well,
match.
the four-way is Psycho Clown, Pentagon Jr., El Hijo de Fantasma, and Ali Park. So one of those guys would be losing their mask.
Probably is going to be Phantasma, I think. I don't think Pentagon's willing to take his mask off yet. I don't think LA Park is. I mean, unless the money's right. I heard they paid Wagner an unbelievable amount of money to lose.
I hope he got it up front.
Pardon me?
I hope he got it up front.
Oh, yeah, sure he did. Triple A's money.
Yeah.
we both worked there. I mean, they've been really good to me this last round.
That's
they've been flying
good.
me out of Philadelphia, and they're paying me pretty good. So Conan's been nice enough to give me an opportunity to go back there, and me and Jack are together again as a tag team. And I think we've made a really good impact on coming back and bringing fans back to the building. Mexican fans really seem to appreciate what Jack and I had done down there. I think we opened up wrestling for two of the Americans, the best Americans, or best Canadians or North American guys to go down to Mexico and to really shine down there with substance. You can't go down to Mexico and fuck around and not do any moves. You got to go down there and really do some cool shit and innovate some stuff. Otherwise, they're just going to bring in other guys.
Yeah, but you can screw around on the house shows, Ted. Those house show matches are goddamn brutal. I've never seen worse matches in my entire life than house show matches in Mexico.
The worst ever.
Holy shit, man. But people are just happy to see you in those small towns. Go ahead, Steve.
Teddy, where else other than AAA on the 25th, where else can people find you, see you upcoming?
I got GCW bookings a lot now. I'm working for GCW. I work with...
Back with Court Bauer?
No, that's MLW.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You're working with him again, too, right?
Yeah, Court. I'm working with Court and Mr. St. Laurent from Florida,
yeah.
And they're giving us a big push with the Hart Foundation. Me and my cousin Harry are back together as a team, which is really cool. We weren't a team. We were only a team in WWE when we were working in FCW and OVW for a little while, and we were a team then. And that was some of the best times I ever had in my life, traveling with Harry and Natty as a team. But the new Hart Foundation is Brian Pillman Jr., which is Brian's son, obviously, and he's a really good kid with a lot of potential, and we're kind of grooming him to be the next guy that probably I think Vince will probably pick him up pretty soon. He's got a lot of charisma, really good look, nice kid, good attitude, doesn't do any drugs, works out hard. So, and I've been trying to suggest to Harry that maybe he makes another run for WWE, but I think he's
good.
Doing indies right
yeah,
now.
He's fine. I get the impression he's just fine right now. But,
yeah, he's happy doing indies because I think he gets to wrestle at a pace and style that he wasn't getting to do before. I think he's getting to show people how good he is. I think he's the best big guy ever. Really, like he's just, people haven't seen the full Harry Smith, but I think the more indie promoters book him, like a Brian Cage too, where like Brian Cage is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they don't get to fully see what he could do until he did Lucha Underground, and then he really got to showcase how amazing of a wrestler he was. Besides just a body guy, where Harry too he's got a great body, but he's a technical machine, and he's actually a pretty good high flyer for a big guy. He's learned the 450 again, Harry, and he's doing the backflip off the top now, a moonsault. So for a guy 6'5", 6'6", doing a backflip and a 450, and he's doing I think he's got the backflip full twist kind of in the back of his mind. He wants to pull that off.
I don't know why the hell he'd want to do that, Ted. Jesus Christ, that's your.
I've been getting in his ear now. I've been getting in his ear about stuff. He's wearing the crazy Teddy Hart suits now. He's got the lines in his hair. He looks like he's on a warpath, Harry. So
Teddy can show up. Teddy's ring gear he can wear out to the. It looks like just some really fly like shit you wear on the street too. Hey Ted.
I got a nice outfit last night. I wore to SummerSlam. I wore a nice outfit there, some money pants and stuff. They kind of look like a pajamas tracksuit.
Hey, Ted. Ted?
Because I feel like sometimes I'm in that mood where I just put my kick pads on in the morning and I go to the show and I'm already dressed. That way, if I'm late, I can just quickly put on basically my shoes if I have to, and then I hop in the ring. But I've been trying to be a lot better with not being late for shows. It's all prep. Waking up in the morning and prepping yourself and getting your shit together, packing your bag, getting your merch and stuff. Where before, I didn't understand the reason people had a certain stigma about me, and it was the stress of a promoter dealing with 30 guys 2 hours late for the show, and wondering if I'm going to show up or not. I thought, hey, we're cool, but then I realized, shit, that's not the best. That's not the best way of being relied upon. If you get there, 3
it's
hours
actually the worst.
Happy.
Not only is it not the best, Teddy, but it's the worst. It's not the best. It's not only is it not the best, but it's the worst way we can be, and that's why it's people that's why I said a little earlier. It's just that's how good you are, Ted. Is people still booked you in spite of all that, and it's so cool to see you coming up out of that, Ted. And I'm keeping my eye on you, man.
I appreciate that, Sean. It means the world to me to have someone like you in my corner again.
And we're 100.
Only be in someone's corner if they want to play ball.
Hey, we're 105 minutes into the show. This is one of the longer shows I've done in a long time.
Teddy Hart's gonna ramble on like a motherfucker.
Yeah, but I'm grateful that you came on today, Teddy. It's really great talking to you. And there's so many things that I would have loved to talk about our experiences. I would have loved to have deep dived into some more of that Mexico stuff. Maybe I'll have you back on and we could do a separate show or something.
I'm always flattered to talk to you. It's an honor to talk to you, and anything I can do to get a message out there, especially through you. The translation of you and I doing it together, I think, is nice because you're a straight fucking shooter. You don't bullshit and you don't sugarcoat things, and that's one thing. I think we're too honest sometimes, Sean. But I mean, that's also been what made people love us so much. Is I think that they know that we tell the truth. If it's a knock on ourselves, nobody's harder on. I think you and I are the most hard on we're the most honest with our self-evaluation. We know when we fucked up and what happened, and we say it the way it was. A lot of guys deflect it, or they don't say anything, or they act like it didn't happen. Yeah. And I think that's why we're still able to come back and people go, fuck, I want to hear what Sean has to say, or I want to listen to Sean's podcast, because you're so classy with how you work with everyone else, but you're straight fucking. Well,
we're gonna test that theory this week with how much they want to listen to my podcast after 110 goddamn minutes. But Teddy, I miss you, my friend, and I hope that we see each other soon.
Absolutely, I will stay in touch more on the phone, Sean. And
all right.
I'll keep calling you and talking to you and send you some videos and stuff of what I'm doing, and hopefully maybe we get on a couple shows together here.
Sounds good, man. Hey, it's great talking to you, Teddy, and I hope you have an awesome rest of your day, my friend.
God bless you, my friend. Love you very much. Thanks
Love
so
you
much
too,
for having
Ted.
me on, guys.
All right, Teddy.
at Teddy Hart is back on Twitter.
Oh, he has it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right,
If you
yeah.
want to follow him on Twitter.
Does he have a pro wrestling tees?
I don't think he has a pro wrestling tees, but on his Twitter, you can find the link to where MLW is selling the new Hart Foundation shirts that have him, Pillman Jr., and Harry Smith.
So real quick, let's get the pleasantries out of the way and let's get the F out of here.
Thank you for watching on our new YouTube channel.
Yes.
If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe to youtube.com/X-Pac.
I should have made a bigger deal about that.
It's all good.
Son of a bitch.
It'll be on the channel. It's a big deal.
Shit.
This weekend, Saturday, August 25th, Sean will be in Chicago at Pro Wrestling Tees doing their fan appreciation meet and greet from 12 to 3. Next Wednesday, August 29th, is the first ever X-Pac 12360 live at the Bootleg Theater. Doors are at 7:30. Show starts at 8:30. Our guests that we have confirmed are Brody King, Taya Valkyrie, Paul London, and Open Mike Eagle doing a performance, probably to start the show.
And it's going to be other people too.
Amazing.
And then like one of my like a very good friend of mine who's an African American stand-up comedian. He has some other TV shows he's been in. Like, you know, he's going to be there too.
You don't want to say his name?
No, man. Like, no. Like, but I think if you can guess, like, you know.
I think they could piece it together.
So,
you know?
Yeah, and there might be somebody, you know, like I'm talking to a couple other people too, that if they can make it, they're going to.
It's definitely something you want to come out and
absolutely
experience
yes
firsthand.
So
tickets are $20. VIP tickets to meet Sean are $50. Tickets are available at Ticketfly, or just go on Facebook.com and search for X-Pac and you'll find it.
Cool.
Follow me on Twitter at Jimbo in the Booth.
All right, you guys can follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at _Denise Salcedo, youtube.com/Denise Salcedo.
You can follow me on Twitter at Steve Kaufman. There's KAUFMANN. I'm involved in 4 different YouTube channels. Well, now 5 different YouTube channels. If you want to find out which ones, you got to go ahead and follow me.
All right. Well, okay, everyone. For anyone that's still listening or watching, we'll see you next week right here. AfterBuzz TV with Westwood One and Jericho Network. Woo.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, Sean Waltman, producers Mark B. Donica, Jimbo Frank, and the entire X-Pac 12360 staff, we would like to thank you for tuning in. Like us on Facebook, rate and comment on iTunes and YouTube. Follow X-Pac on Twitter @TheRealXpac and email us at xpac12360show@gmail.com.